All right, this is going to be a quick one because Anthony Davis might be out for the season. It's not confirmed at all. I hope that he's back in a few weeks or a month. But even in that scenario, right, I think the Mavericks season might be over. In 3/4 of Anthony Davis being on this team, he got injured. And that I just feel terrible for Anthony Davis because he got put in a scenario in which there was pretty much no winning. Mavs fans are going to have a tough time endorsing him, and if he gets injured like this, re-injures something that he had with the Lakers, there is no harm or foul to Anthony Davis getting injured. That's part of the game, right? Anthony Davis, that's part of the risk you get with getting him as a player, and I think that's super unfair that Anthony Davis has that tag to him because I think he's been pretty solid and consistent with his play and has played in a lot of games in the last 2 years, more than Luka Doncic, a lot of people pointed out. But what I will say is that's going to turn the other direction soon because AD is probably not going to play for a few weeks, and that few weeks, if he comes back and he's still not feeling 100%, I thought he looked great today, but if he's going to continue to pull things in his groin area, it was an abdominal injury beforehand, but I think they might have had it mislabeled to people because if he's going to re-injure something, it looked like the inside of his thigh, like his abductor, and to me, that sort of injury doesn't happen because you had an abdominal injury, and it's not one of those things that's directly correlated, like this was just almost a separate injury, or they weren't detailing it in the right way, at least the Lakers weren't. In the craziest act of basketball karma I've ever seen, Anthony Davis is sadly the victim of a situation in Dallas that there is no winning in right now. This is truly the season from hell in every single way you could possibly imagine. Luka Doncic is no longer on your team. Kyrie Irving is struggling because of a back injury that's bugging him. He's just going to play through it, but that's not a good sign for your number one offensive engine. Anthony Davis plays 3/4, and it looks like he's going to be out for a month, potentially for the season if he has season-ending abductor surgery, and I just don't know what we're thinking here. Mavs fans, as soon as we traded for Anthony Davis, said we're worried about his injury history, right? We're worried about the fact that he gets injured all the time. And Nico Harrison responded with saying, Luka gets injured all the time too, and we think this defense wins championships, and we think this puts us in the position to win a championship. Are we going to win the championship with Kyrie Irving and a bunch of role players? I don't even know if we're going to make the playoffs that way. I love Max Christie. I think he's been great. He's a role player right now. So to say I'm frustrated with the way this Mavs front office has operated the last week is putting it lightly, putting it very, very lightly. And to say that I'm frustrated with the fact that Anthony Davis has to be the victim of this entire scenario where he has to come in, probably play a little bit sooner than he needed to because the front office wants to prove to Mavs fans that we can still win, right? We can still win. And I wasn't doubting that. I don't think many people were doubting that. Yeah, the trade was bad and you'll look bad in 4 to 5 years or 2 to 3 at this rate or a week. Honestly, it looks pretty bad right now. It looked pretty bad when you traded for him. To be honest, it looked fucking terrible as soon as you traded Luka Doncic, but that's neither here nor there. I can't imagine a worse way this could have gone down other than Max Christie being a pretty much negative asset. If he was terrible, then we would have absolutely zero positives to take out of this because Anthony Davis played 3 solid quarters of basketball, very, very good quarters of basketball. I thought he was awesome. And then goes down on a non-contact injury that probably will sideline him for at least a few weeks at the minimum, and at most it might be his season because he's going to have to get surgery, and that terrifies me as a Mavs fan because if he decides not to get surgery and comes back and does something worse, then he's definitely out for the season and you worry about next season. This is one of those things, it's not a pain tolerance thing. So there's not much to say about that other than holy shit, it just keeps getting worse. There's no silver lining here other than Max Christie being a pretty solid player. This is just as bad as you could possibly imagine this going. So now I want to move on to what Patrick Dumont had to say the other day. I'm just going to read it off. If you look at the greats in the league, the people you and I grew up with, Jordan, Bird, Kobe, Shaq, they worked really hard every day with a singular focus to win. And if you don't have that, it doesn't work. You shouldn't be part of the Dallas Mavericks. What do you say to that, man? You trade him out of nowhere on a Saturday, randomly, and then you just absolutely stomp on him on the way out. Just call him an alcoholic, a fat ass, that he doesn't work hard. What player that averaged 33, 9, and 9 doesn't work hard? There's not some secret Luka Doncic formula that he's just magically this better player than everyone else. No. And when he's done working hard here, he goes over and plays for the Slovenian team. How do you play almost 100 games in a calendar year and get called a bum? This is a nightmare scenario in every single possible angle you could possibly think of. That's who we want. I'm unwavering on this. The entire organization knows this. This is how I operate outside of basketball. This is the only way to be competitive and win. If you want to take a vacation, don't do it with us. Look, I think there's a lot of things that come into play when you decide on the roster of the team, and culture is very important. That's what we're focused on. Just fucking shocking, dude. Absolutely shocking. You weren't here when we even drafted him. You weren't even here when he played against the Clippers those 2 series, and he had nobody around him. Had to carry that team, and he almost beat a Paul George and Kawhi-led Los Angeles Clippers team. He gave them hell. He hit that game winner. He was putting up 50-point performances while Porzingis was sitting in the corner mad because he wasn't getting the ball. There is nothing. This is indefensible. Luka has been around in the Mavericks organization almost double the amount of time you've been. Actually, more than double. You've been around the Mavericks organization, and you treat this place like another business venture. The Dallas Mavericks are not a business venture. They are a sports team that millions and millions of people care about significantly. It's not, oh, we can just deal our franchise guy for a guy we think will help. Even if you think that's the case, right, which is completely wrong. It's completely false. Anthony Davis is not Luka Doncic. I want to believe in him as much as possible, but he is not Luka. And it shows in the first game of the season. You get the ultimate Anthony Davis experience where he's awesome in the first half, puts up big points, big rebounds. Third quarter, it's iffy, and then fourth quarter, he gets injured. It's just unfair to him. It's unfair to Mavs fans. It's horrible business management, even if you want to take the business point where it's like, oh, this is how I run all of my other business ventures. Ever since Patrick Dumont took over as the CFO of the Las Vegas Sands, they've lost $7 billion. It's actually worse than that, and I don't plan to be a finance guru at all. That's not what I'm studying, but I can look at a chart. In November 2016, the Las Vegas Sands market cap was $49.81 billion. It is now down to $30 billion. That is a $19 billion loss over that time period. And we want that guy making basketball decisions for the Mavericks. And then I see Mark Cuban making jokes to Bill Gates, like it's like trading Windows 11 for Windows 10 when I leave, or something like that. I don't know what he's talking about. And the fact that reportedly they told him at the last second he tried to convince Nico not to do it, but it had already been decided on. This is what happens, Mark Cuban, when you leave your prized possession in the Dallas Mavericks because some gambling family gives you billions of dollars and probably overpays for the franchise. And you can't say no to that money because you'll make your money back infinitely when they build a casino in Dallas. A casino that will ultimately, yes, will be fun for some people, but will devastate a lot of people. There's a reason gambling is illegal in Texas. If the new sports betting wave doesn't show people how harmful gambling can be for people my age, people older than me, my generation has really been affected. My friends and everyone, sports bets a little bit. And it's just like, that's terrible because at the end of the day, you're throwing away money you could be using elsewhere. This casino will do the same thing. Mark Cuban just sees dollar signs. So he sells the team to the Allisons. He puts Jason Kidd in as the head coach, and he brings Nico Harrison in as the general manager, a guy who had no general managing experience, just has a lot of relationships around the league, sold some fucking shoes every once in a while. What did you think was going to happen? Nico Harrison had the entire Dallas Metroplex in the palm of his hands because he had made a couple of great deals. PJ Washington, amazing deal. Daniel Gafford bringing him in, awesome. Losing Jalen Brunson, horrific, terrible, but you could have at least blamed that one on Cuban, right? That's kind of the end of my thoughts on this team because every time I think about it, it just gets worse. Because at the end of the day, this quote where it's like Jordan, Bird, Kobe, Shaq, all those guys had off-court problems. Jordan was a gambler. Larry Bird hurt his back paving his driveway. Also, heavy drinker and partier. Kobe Bryant, we won't even talk about what he got up to on the off-court issues. Shaq came in overweight every year, and he even said it on a podcast himself, his own podcast, saying, yeah, I came in overweight every year, but who was doing it like me? Fair point. And that's what I would say about Luka Doncic. Because I don't think Luka has half the issues these all-time greats have. He's not a degenerate gambler. He's not an alcoholic. In theory, he doesn't get himself injured doing weird things. He's not what Kobe did. And you could argue he does a little bit of what Shaq does, but Shaq was significantly more egregious. So if you're going to compare Luka Doncic to anyone in history, as far as like his work ethic and how he meant to the Mavericks, Patrick Dumont, how about you look outside your arena at the statue that says loyalty on it. He was our next Dirk, and he is the next Dirk. And he will now have a different career trajectory because you came in and thought that Nico Harrison was a genius and that defense wins championships. I'm not even convinced Patrick Dumont has watched basketball for more than 5 years. So when the Mavericks play the Lakers, I'm going to support the guy that got trashed on the way out of town, that got traded randomly on a Saturday night during the trade deadline for a guy that got injured in his first game with the Mavericks. Now, you can't control that as Anthony Davis, and I will still support the Mavericks because that's how fandom is. But I truly won't be as big of a fan until the front office and or the ownership is gone, or at least Patrick Dumont is not in control of this team anymore. But until that day comes, when Luka comes into town and gives us 50 for the rest of his career, it will be on you, Patrick Dumont and Nico Harrison. Anyway, y'all take care. If I could save time in a